Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Calvin Tobin Show. I am your host, Calvin Tobin. Today we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Alright, Championship Saturday is in the books, and every single game was absolutely crazy. In only 2 games were decided within 10 points. The rest, every single winner won by 15 or more points. And out of this entire weekend, there were 3 statement games. Michigan beating Iowa, and I'll get into that in a second. Alabama beating Georgia, and Pittsburgh beating Wake Forest. Now, the biggest one was Alabama knocking off Georgia's defense by throwing 41 up on them. And Georgia was known as one of the most historical scoring defenses in college football history up until that point. And then they just got demolished because they were allowing 6.9 points a game. Absolutely insane numbers. And another reason why this Alabama game was such a statement win is because of Bryce Young. This dude is a freshman and he's playing like a senior. Nick Saban is unreal when it comes to being able to develop players and make them play outstanding no matter how old or what experience they have. It's just incredible. But with Bryce Young, what he did in this game and over the last 3 games he's been in, he's averaged 432 passing yards and nearly 3.5 touchdowns per game. Bryce Young is unreal, especially for a freshman. And the other statement game is Michigan beating Iowa, like I said, 42-3. But why is this such a statement game? Well, it's Michigan winning their first Big Ten title since 2005, and they fought, and Jim Harbaugh, after this, finally knocked off Ohio State. But in this game, Aiden Hutchinson is finally recognized and was pushed into the Final Four finalists as a Heisman. But we all know who's going to win it because of the game that Bryce Young had. And I do believe that Bryce Young is going to win the Heisman. But the other 2, like I was saying, Aiden Hutchinson's got 14 sacks, had an unbelievable season, broke a Michigan school record in sacks, and that pushed him into the Heisman race, or a Heisman finalist. And the other one was Kenny Pickett having an absolute dominant game against Wake Forest, beating them 45-21. And he had a little nice play when he ran for 50-plus yards for a touchdown and hit a fake slide and completely faked out a defender. Absolutely great play. But other than that, he had a statement game, and which boosted him into the Heisman race of the Final Four. Now the Final Four is C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Aiden Hutchinson, and Kenny Pickett. And my pick, and I think everyone else knows this, my pick to win the Heisman is going to be Bryce Young. Alright, now let's talk some NFL. We're getting closer and closer to the playoffs as Week 13 is coming to an end after this Bills-Patriots game, and we're going to see how that game plays out. But this weekend, there are a few questions that came up, and we got to talk about it. And the question is, who's the MVP? Who's the best team in the AFC? Who's the best team in the NFC? Now let's get right into that. Let's get right into the MVP. Oh my gosh. There are 3 players who are having outstanding seasons up until this point. Tom Brady having 3,700 passing yards, 34 passing touchdowns, 35 total. Jonathan Taylor having 1,348 rushing yards, 18 total touchdowns, 16 rushing. And then you got Cooper Kupp, who's got 1,366 receiving yards, along with 10 plus receiving touchdowns. Like, at this point, people are leaning more towards Tom Brady as thinking he's going to win the MVP. But I do think that Jonathan Taylor might actually win it because he's played 13 games so far, and there's 4 to go, and he has 18 touchdowns, nearly 1,400 rushing yards. If he can average over the next 4 games of what he's been doing all year, he could end up with 2,200 yards from scrimmage and maybe 23, 24, maybe even 25 touchdowns, depending on how each game that Jonathan Taylor plays out. With Tom Brady, he could hit 5,000 and maybe throw for 50 again because he's got 5 games left to play and he's throwing 3.5 touchdowns per game. It's unreal, especially doing this at 44. And with Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp is having a season that we haven't seen from him before, and looks like all he needed was Matthew Stafford to make himself a statement in the NFL, because as of right now, he is Matthew Stafford's favorite target and is just blowing by corner after corner. As of right now, my MVP is going to be Jonathan Taylor, because how many times in NFL history have we seen a running back get 20 plus touchdowns? As of right now, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, the only players that have scored 20 plus touchdowns that's not a quarterback is is Todd Gurley and Damian Tomlinson, all the way back in 2006 when he had a season that it has a record that'll never be broken of 31 total touchdowns. And that's probably a record that will never be broken, or at least for a very, very long time. Now, for my complete teams in the AFC or the NFC, as of right now, it's kind of hard to tell between Green Bay and Tampa, because with Tampa, after that loss to Washington, which shouldn't have been a loss in the first place, don't know how they lost that game, but after that loss, the Bucks have started to look like back to themselves, scoring 30 points a game and just absolutely dominating their opponent's defense by scoring nearly drive after drive after drive. And with Green Bay, it looks like that they are slowly getting better, and maybe, just maybe, we might get a rematch in the NFC Championship between Green Bay and Tampa, and with Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers is still doing Aaron Rodgers things, pushing up ridiculous numbers, even though it might not be as impressive as Tom Brady's numbers, he's still like a non-turnover OG. Like, the dude does not turn the ball over whatsoever. And it really intrigues me on if he is going to retire or going to a new team after this season, because he said that this was his last season with Green Bay, so we're going to see on what's going to happen. But between those two, it's very hard to tell. Green Bay and Tampa are my 2 most complete teams in the NFC. In the AFC, Mac Jones is pulling stuff is doing stuff that we never would expect from him, because, well, obviously, since Tom Brady left, we're all thinking that the dynasty is over, but with Mac Jones and Bill Belichick is kind of starting to prove that it was 50-50 with Tom Brady and himself. But we're going to see how far Mac Jones can lead this Patriots team into the playoffs in his rookie year, because they're 8-4 and have the number 1 seed in the AFC. Now, the other team is kind of the Colts, but the only thing is that they've had some bad losses, and they started out a little bit slow in the season, going over 3. But I do think that these guys have a huge shot at surprising a lot of people and be in the playoffs or in the playoff run when the season is over with. All right, now let's talk some baseball because free agency is going wild. You got the Texas Rangers making multiple signings, especially Corey Seager's $325 million deal. You got Seattle signing Adam Frazier and Robbie Ray, who is the Cy Young Award winner this year. Seattle's going to look a lot better next year, and we're going to see. But also with the Blue Jays and a few other teams, it's really hard to tell on who's making the best moves because Robbie Ray to Seattle, Kevin Gausman to Toronto, Corey Seager, like I said, to Texas, Adam Frazier to Seattle as well. Like which team is better? But in my opinion, I do think that the Texas Rangers are making the best moves in free agency so far. They got John Gray for a 4-year, $56 million deal. They got Corey Seager on a 10-year, $325 million deal. And they signed a few other players. I think they've also signed the most players through free agency so far, but I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Texas, from what they have done, for what they did last year, going 60 and 102, and now signing all these great players. Oh my gosh, Texas might be a complete flipped team, a complete reciprocated team, and might actually potentially be a 75 to 85 win team next year. All right, if you guys haven't heard already, on December 18th, Jake Paul is fighting Tyron Woodley for a rematch due to Tommy Fury pulling out due to medical reasons. Now, we are definitely going to see how their hands are going to move, how their bodies are going to move, and it's going to be a lot more interesting in this fight because it's round 2 within the last 4 months. Like, that doesn't usually happen. But will Tyron Woodley get his revenge? We will definitely find out. All right, that's the end of the Calvin Tobin Show. Please subscribe to my channel at Calvin Tobin Show so you don't miss out on any sports media. And please follow me on Instagram at Calvin Tobin Show so you don't miss out on any sports media whatsoever. And I'm out.